welcome back to Who's Worse, where I cover what I believe to be the worst episode of a particular season of Doctor Who. As always, this is only my opinion. If you think another episode is worse than what I picked, feel free to share your thoughts. This time, I'm taking a look at Season 3, so let's get started! Time to get rid of the incomplete serials. The past 2 seasons only had 1 incomplete episode apiece, but unfortunately the trend doesn't continue here. How many are there this time? Yep, there's only 3 complete stories this time around. Among the missing stories is the Daleks' Master Plan, and at 12 episodes, it's the longest serial from the classic era, provided you don't count Trial of a Time Lord as 1 story instead of 4. Thankfully, some of those episodes survived. Other serials, like The Mythmakers, The Massacre, and The Savages, are completely missing. But I'm not here to rant about the BBC's junking policy, I'm here to talk about bad episodes. So let's take a look at what's left. It's easy for me to pick out the best among the 3 this time around. It's The War Machines. Admittedly, this is an average serial that shows its age, but it has some fun moments sprinkled in that makes it a bit endearing. Well, the good news is that these serials are only 4 episodes long this time, but the bad news is that neither of these episodes are good. Which will it be this time? The one with the plague, or the one with the OK Corral? Congratulations, you pitiful excuse for a Western! You're up for review today! There are a few interesting tidbits about the story, though. For instance, according to a myth, this serial has the lowest ratings of any Doctor Who story. Not quite. All of the episodes prior to the 10th planet had lower ratings. Though the low ratings on this story further reinforced an argument made by then-producer Innes Lloyd, that historical episodes should be dropped. Considering that there were only 4 more historical episodes after this, 2 being made years apart, I'm guessing people decided to listen to him. Another amusing fact is that Johnny Ringo was almost played by Patrick Troughton, who would eventually become the 2nd Doctor. Yeah, we almost had the first instance of an actor playing a different character before they became the Doctor. The actual first instance wouldn't happen until 1983, where Colin Baker would play Commander Maxwell before he was cast as the 6th Doctor. This was also the only serial from the classic era to completely take place in the United States. The next time a story took place in the US wouldn't be until the 1996 movie. And lastly, this was the final serial to have individually named episodes. Everything after this was subject to the naming formula of title of serial, part episode number. That's enough trivia for now. Let's take a trip to the Wild West and see how the Gunfighters holds up. We open on...
So fill up your glasses.
Singing. Yeah, I wasn't kidding when I called this a Western musical last time. Normally, I wouldn't mind so much, except this is the only song that plays. They had the decency to change the lyrics, but almost every instance has the same tune and the same singer. It gets real old, real fast. Over in a shed, the TARDIS materializes. The Doctor has a nasty toothache thanks to some sweets he ate in his last adventure, and is in need of a dentist. Upon figuring out that they're in Tombstone, the companions mark out like wrestling fans at the mere thought of pretending to be a cowboy. Right, I should probably introduce them. The tall guy is Stephen, who showed up at the tail end of the chase as a prisoner. He hitchhiked on the TARDIS and became a full-fledged companion during the Time Meddler. I like him. He is one of my favorite companions, and it's a shame this is his last existing story. The girl is Dodo, who showed up at the end of The Massacre and traveled with the Doctor until the end of this season. Unlike Stephen, her departure story is still intact. I don't like her. I think she has a punchable face.
Why are you going to dress yourself up like Tom Mix? I can't imagine you're asking for trouble. Why can't you wear inconspicuous clothes like I do?
Hey, Doctor. Let me show you Mr. Patchwork Nightmare here. That's you in 18 years. You'll be the most conspicuous of them all. And you'll like it! Steven's antics as Deadeye Steve gets the attention of one Marshal Wyatt Earp, but thankfully he's in a good mood. He even warns them of the Clantons being in town. Speaking of, the Clantons are making their intentions clear. They want to kill Doc Holliday.
Now, let's get this straight. You mean you don't know where Holliday... You never met Holliday either? Look, I don't have to meet him. I've seen pictures. I've had him described to me.
I'm sure this won't lead into any hijinks whatsoever. The woman with the fancy dress is Kate, who happens to be Holliday's lover. She overhears their conversation and goes to warn him in his office. He takes this about as well as you'd expect.
The day I can't walk down Main Street of any city in the West on account it ain't safe, then I'll be dead.
Not helping his mood is Sheriff Masterson telling him to stay away from the Last Chance Saloon.
Then I bid you good afternoon, Sheriff. And I hope I shall have the pleasure of attending you shortly in my dental saloon.
Then I'll get to do some gambling with your life. After coming up with fake identities for the group, the doctor finds Holliday's office.
You know, I don't think that is a very subtle form of advertising, do you? Yes, come to think of it, my dear. You know, I think my toothache better. Yes, I don't think it's going to be at all necessary.
The doctor has faced Daleks, fellow Time Lords, and just got out of a scrape with the celestial toy maker who is apparently a guardian of time. And you're telling me he's afraid of getting his tooth pulled?
What's so funny?
I was just thinking. I hope he's not expecting an injection.
Oh, you two are wonderful friends, laughing about his impending misery.
You're welcome to a slug of rattlesnake
Oh,
oil.
my dear man, I never touch alcohol.
Well, I do.
Doc Holliday, paving the way for responsible dentists everywhere. Over in the saloon, the Clantons and Harper are still hanging around when Stephen and Dodo arrive. Sadly, them mentioning the doctor is enough to rile them up. Harper is sent out to go look for Holliday and winds up running into the doctor. And since Harper's never seen Holliday, he mistakes the doctor for him. Yeah, I guess now's a good time to mention that this is supposed to be a comedy. Holliday takes advantage of the confusion by making the doctor carry his gun. Now, normally, he would see what Holliday's trying to do and either reject the gun or get rid of it. Instead, he keeps the gun and leaves the office. Back at the saloon, the companions are forced to play music for the rowdy outlaws. Guess what song they play?
With rings on their fingers and bells on their toes.
Alright, I can forgive this one. After all, they're playing at gunpoint. If I was in the same situation, I'd be willing to sing anything to save myself. If I was stuck on piano, though,
Then I'll be dead.
to everyone's relief, Kate arrives and stops the song, only to boot Dodo off piano duty and force Stephen to take over. And for some reason, this pisses Dodo off. Like I needed any more reasons to consider her a stupid brat. And then we go back.
So fill up your glasses and join in the song.
Well, at least the outlaws are getting into it. Oh great, the doctor's here. And he still has Holliday's gun. Look, if you're resorting to turning established characters into idiots to make your comedy work, then your barrel of ideas is pretty shallow. Should I be worried about the myth makers since they're both by the same writer? Needless to say, things go to hell in a handbasket, leading to Masterson and Wyatt arresting the doctor, letting the Clantons walk free, and leaving Stephen in an unfortunate situation. Upstairs, Dodo is being held hostage by Holliday, who followed Kate to the saloon.
What's she doing here?
She saw me fire the gun.
Yeah, I guess that was you. That's why I come a-looking. You should have killed the little rat.
Look, she leaves in 2 stories. I can survive her idiocy for a while longer. That night, Stephen arrives at the jail and gives the doctor a gun to get himself out. But he proceeds to give the weapon to Wyatt.
I have no intention of trying anything. Only people keep giving me guns, and I do wish they wouldn't.
Rocks and swords I can work with, but guns? No, no, no. The Clantons rile up a mob at the saloon, and Stephen is captured and dragged around the street. Now at this point, Holliday and Kate are about to leave Tombstone when the mob starts walking around. They can use that as a distraction while they escape.
Pick up my operating chair. Wait here.
Yep, rather than wait it out, Holiday runs out to save his chair, which leads to him shooting Harper downstairs, which leads to Dodo being forced to follow him out of Tombstone. In thinking about it, a lot could have been avoided if Holiday showed some patience.
Get out of the street, Clanton. Holiday's my prisoner.
Well, that's too bad, because if he ain't out of there in 2 minutes, his friend Regret here is going to swing in his place.
You know, I don't think this song's a good fit for a mob about to perform a lynching. Thankfully, Wyatt is able to put a stop to things, much to the dismay of the mob.
Go on home. Necktie party's over.
Oh, we were really hoping for a hanging tonight. Nothing exciting ever happens in this town. Anyone aching for a song? I could play that one ballad on the piano. Unfortunately, the barman arrives and tells everyone that Holiday just killed Harper and left, which pisses off the Clantons enough to get their dad involved. Wyatt's reaction says it all.
Boy, that's all we needed.
After everyone leaves, the last remaining Clanton is hauled off to jail. But you don't need me to tell you that. The song will do it for me!
So pick him up gentle and carry him slow. He's gone kind of mental under Earth's heavy blow.
Over in the saloon, Pa Clanton decides to go looking for Johnny Ringo, an outlaw who wasn't even involved in the OK Corral gunfight. Really, I could sit here and rattle on about how this gunfight differs from the one in reality, but Doctor Who wasn't known for being historically accurate. Still, a bit of research goes a long way. Just ask John Lucarotti. Anyhow, the Doctor and Stephen arrive just as the Clantons leave, and they learn that Dodo's gone.
Well, friend, you want to find her? You find Doc Holliday.
Now, don't be ridiculous. Doc Holliday's a great friend of mine.
I hope you're joking. I really hope you're joking. But sure, let's see how Holiday and company are doing.
Not again.
It's all right, ladies, it's all right. I just ran into an old friend, and he kind of lost his appetite.
Yeah, I'd say he had a shot too many. Oh, come on! If he can make puns, I can too! Back in Tombstone, Johnny Ringo's arrived and makes himself known by scaring the ever-loving crap out of the barman. Poor guy's been through a lot, from dealing with ruffians to nearly getting shot. Maybe Ringo will cut him some slack.
Hey, Charlie.
Never mind then.
So it's curtains for Charlie.
Okay, I'm pretty sure the audience doesn't need a song to tell them that someone just died. If there's a legitimate reason for someone to state the obvious, that's fine. But in this case, it's wholly unnecessary. And would you believe that the song talks about Charlie's death 2 more times after this? Now for something not stupid. Dodo, wanting Holiday to uphold his promise, holds him at gunpoint and forces him to take her back to Tombstone. Between this, the Ark, and the War Machines, I think that's the best thing she's done. Mind you, it's marred a bit by her fainting at the sight of Holiday's gun, but in fairness, she did say she was feeling faint. Later on, the Doctor and Stephen find the corpse and wind up talking to Ringo. Because he's also looking for Holiday, they decide that the best course of action is to have Stephen go with him. And Ringo makes it quite clear that if Stephen gets in the way, he'll get killed. Well, at least the Doctor has the sense to tell the lawmen about what happened. Over in the other town, Stephen and Ringo begin their search.
Johnny Ringo has found her.
Skip! Turns out Ringo and Kate have some history together, and he's not the kind of person who takes rejection well. Let's see, he's obsessed with killing Holiday, followed Kate for 2 years, and threatened her life when she refused to go with him. All that's left now is for him to say, "If I can't have you, no one can." Things aren't much better back in Tombstone as the Clantons bust their brother out and shoot Warren Earp in the process. But don't worry, Warren gets traded in for Virgil. The Clantons return to their home, where their dad, Ringo, and his hostages await. Upon hearing that they shot down an Earp, however, Pa Clanton reacts poorly.
Well, glory be.
Now you really have declared war.
Sure enough, Wyatt and his brother are aching for revenge, something that Masterson tries and fails to talk them out of.
They played out the game and we never more shall.
Hear of this wicked song about the OK Corral.
Pass the coffee.
Back at the Clantons' house, Stephen and Kate try to talk about escaping when Virgil arrives and delivers his message. Meanwhile, Holiday and Dodo return to Tombstone, setting the stage for the gunfight at the OK Corral. Masterson tries one last time to stop what's about to happen by asking the doctor to try talking the Clantons out of it.
Now, it's only about 2 hours to sun up. You better get started. Right now.
Boys are on the way.
You're a bit too late to stop them now. Still, the doctor arrives and tells Pa Clanton about Holiday's presence. It's around this time that Pa begins rethinking his life choices.
Though the cards they are drawn and the chips they are down, then out walks...
So it's time for the showdown between the Clantons and the Earps. Holiday and Ringo are off to the side, attempting their own power plays. Let's not waste any more time. Gentlemen, fire! Oh, come on, Dodo! Why'd you run up to them? You got Holiday's attention. You could have just stayed where you were. You've earned your namesake, you idiot! I mean, good for you, you got out of Ringo's grasp, but that's not changing my opinion of you anytime soon! So Ringo is killed and the Clantons fall one by one. You know, for a gunfight, that was really boring.
If the Earps is the lawman, you ain't gonna win.
The audience sure didn't. The doctor and company are about to leave, and Holiday hands them a wanted poster of himself as a parting gift. But as one final insult, Kate starts singing that godforsaken song. Evidently, the doctor's just as sick of being in Tombstone as I am, since he rushes the others into the TARDIS and throws the wanted poster away. And so the TARDIS leaves, but this isn't the only time the doctor stops by the Wild West. No, not by a long shot. The story ends with them arriving in what the doctor assumes to be a peaceful future, but as the monitor shows, something is amiss. That being the fact that the next story is completely missing. Hooray! That was The Gunfighters, and this felt like a waste of time. Now, there's plenty of Western comedies out there, so there's proof that the idea works. However, it's botched here. Hardly any of the jokes worked, and the main characters were dumbed down at times in what felt like desperate attempts at comedy. The doctor, in particular, was aggravating here. He seemed completely convinced that Holiday wasn't trying to set him up. It felt out of character, even for the first Doctor. Then there's the song. I want to know, did the writer really think that it was a good idea to put a song into this story? It was fine when Stephen and Kate sang it since those moments served a purpose, but the chorus should have been omitted altogether. It did a lot more harm than good, what with its repetitious nature and tendency to state the obvious, not to mention how it didn't contribute to the plot. Speaking of, the biggest mark against this serial was its lackluster story. Nothing spectacular happened, and considering how this was supposed to be a Western, that's not a good sign. I can't speak for everyone, but I can overlook a bad story if it's entertaining. This sorry mess somehow managed to make a gunfight boring. I didn't think that was possible, but the gunfighters proved me wrong. So was there anything good about this serial? Well, some of the actors were good, particularly Anthony Jacobs and John Alderson as Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp respectively. They fit nicely into their roles, and their attempts at American accents sounded decent. They did better than everyone else in that department, that's for sure. The sets were also pretty good. Even with a limited budget, Barry Newberry managed to make a decent recreation of a Western town. And lastly, it's short. Imagine if this was stretched out to 6 episodes. This is the worst historical I've seen so far, and it's not something I can recommend. In comparison to the other 2 stories I've reviewed, it's just barely better than the Season 2 episode, but once again, I'd rather see Season 1's episode over this. That's all for this episode. Next time, I'll cover what I think is the worst complete episode of Season 4. Will it feature the Cybermen or the Daleks? More importantly, will it star the first or second Doctor? No matter what I review, though, I'll finally get a chance to talk about the wonderful world of animated Doctor Who.